that you have your sound. It's going, just make sure that slash mark is through it. Throughout the presentation, we'll keep ourselves mute, but you can use that chat feature that Julia has been using and some of our other audience members have been using, that you can ask questions, and we'll definitely get that at the end when we have the questions and answers. Stop video just means that if you're doing something you don't want everyone else to see, turn it off so then we don't see it, and your picture won't be shown. This is being recorded too, so after this meeting it'll go onto YouTube, so in case you wanted to review any materials that Mary Lou talks about tonight, you definitely can go back and see that. Okay, so in case of an emergency, if something happens, I will alert you that it appears that a troll is in our meeting. All you'll do is just shut off your cameras. If you want to leave, you definitely can. And like I said, it'll be on YouTube. And we'll remove that person and handle the situation as best as possible. So, without further ado, I would like to introduce our speaker for tonight. Her name is Mary Lou Brncik. She is the founder and president of David's Hope Arizona Mental Health Criminal Justice Coalition. Born in Akron, Ohio, her former vocation at working as a nurse provided a good foundation into the world of mental disorders. Mary Lou's son, David, was diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder at the age of 23. Soon after, David's life intersected with Arizona's criminal justice system. These events led Mary Lou to years of battling both the mental health and criminal justice systems to get treatment for her son. This work eventually grew into a mission to help others, the goal being that no one else would have to fight such insurmountable odds to receive mental health care and to prevent others with a mental disease from being entangled in the criminal justice system. The mission of David's Hope is to reduce the numbers of people with mental illness and addiction who are incarcerated through prevention, intervention, and treatment. So without further ado, here's Mary Lou, and I'm going to put her survey in the chat right now, and she'll talk more about what she wants you guys to do with that. Oh wait, Mary Lou, it looks like you're muted. Hold on.
I'm sorry.
You're okay.
Okay, let me do that again. Thank you so much, Marissa and Julia and everyone at NAMI Valley of the Sun. It's a real honor to be here with you tonight, and you all have been a great support to me over the years and continue through the leadership of Jim Dunn at NAMI State to partner with our Arizona Mental Health Criminal Justice Coalition. And it's just been the partnership and collaboration that we have with you all is just essential for the progress that we've been able to make, and will continue to remain to be an integral part of what we do. So I just highly value your being here with me tonight, and that we can all be together, though we're apart. And I look forward to sharing with you a little bit about David's Hope. I know many of you that are on tonight have worked closely with us in the past, and there are some folks that are new, I'm sure. So I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you better and to help you have a better understanding of what it is that David's Hope's about and why we do what we do, and how you can be involved if you'd like to be. You could go ahead and hit the slide, Marissa. So that lighthouse there that you're seeing is was part of the logo that we created when we first started the organization. We felt like we were trying to shine some light in a world of darkness. It seemed as though, as Marissa had read in my bio, when my son David first was diagnosed with a serious mental illness, he had intersected with law enforcement when he was in a psychiatric crisis, and it seemed as though the world didn't make sense. When common sense would tell us that if law enforcement became involved with someone who was very delusional and sick, that they would know that what was happening and they would try to get that person help. That is, that certainly is law enforcement's intention, to help everyone and to improve public safety. But unfortunately, they're not doctors. Law enforcement's not doctors. They're not medical professionals. And though they've led so much across our state in this effort, truly, law enforcement has been our closest allies. The fact of the matter is that when folks do get charged with a crime and get to courts, it doesn't matter a whole lot that they have a mental illness, or it hasn't in the past, at least let me say that. So we'll talk about that tonight, and I'm going to go through this PowerPoint. I'll just do a lot of reading, which I know you could do yourselves, but I'm going to carry you through this, and then we'll highlight on some of the important points. But we are, as you all know, in a public health crisis for people living with mental illness and addiction. 44 states, jails and prisons are largest housing institutions for people with mental illness. People with mental disorders have longer jail stays than people without, and greater rates of homelessness and higher recidivism. Each year, there are an estimated 2 million people with serious mental illnesses admitted to jails across the nation. And you might have heard that number already. That's a number that's used frequently in the Stepping Up initiative work, which we'll be talking about tonight. So it truly is a public health crisis. That number is equivalent to the population of Vermont and New Hampshire combined. So almost 3/4 of these adults also have drug and alcohol use problems. You can go to the next slide. Our mission, as was stated earlier, to reduce the numbers of people with mental disorders and addictions who are incarcerated through prevention, intervention, and treatment. Sounds like a big order, and it is. We're a small grassroots organization, almost entirely volunteer run. We are throughout the state, though not physically in offices housed, but we have been able to, let me use the word infiltrate into all the counties to talk to county leadership and community members about the issue of the incarceration rates of people with mental illness being so high, and the outcomes being so poor. So go ahead and go to the next slide. This you're all probably familiar with, just shows the extreme difference in percentages of people that have a diagnosable mental disorder. The definition was that can be treated with medication, and showing the numbers in the general population as compared to the numbers of both men and women in jail and in state prison. If you look at the numbers of people in state prison that have co-occurring disorders, you will find the numbers to be probably, I believe they're telling us about 3 times higher than what it is just for mental illness alone. But co-occurring, of course, is one of the main drivers of incarceration. You will often find folks that'll be sympathetic for someone with a mental illness, and not so much so for someone with an addiction. And one of the things that we talk about is that addiction is also a mental disease, and needs to be treated as a disease, just as a mental illness does. And the crossover between the two is still so poorly treated, and one of the greatest needs really in our state remaining still today, that even clinicians oftentimes will discriminate in that the way they approach someone with co-occurring compared to someone who does not have a substance use issue. And I'm sure many of you have seen and experienced some of that your own selves if you've been involved with anyone who's just as involved with a substance use disorder. There have been mental health courts created around the state, but drug courts were created probably 2 decades before mental health courts began to really sprout up. And so that's quite a difference of at least 10 years for sure before the need for mental health courts was really recognized after drug addiction had been addressed in the courts through those treatment courts. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So we're a nonprofit organization. We advocate for the creation of state and national policies and practice which will increase diversion away from the criminal justice system and into comprehensive community-based treatment and support services. We are looking at not only state policies, as it says here, but county policies. And we don't realize oftentimes how powerful the work that's going on in the counties is and how much of a voice you can have there. Now, Maricopa is sort of like a state in itself, I know, with the numbers. I think close to 4 million, almost probably 3.5, 4 million people. But all the counties throughout the state, whether large or small, have an integral part to play in reducing the numbers of people with mental illness that we're incarcerating, that we're sending to jail, and eventually possibly sending to prison. So if you can, sometimes it's hard because we want to focus on legislation and statewide work, and that's important. That's a really tall order, and our state definitely still is struggling with that. But our county work is something that we have seen huge strides in various different counties as for addressing this issue. So I encourage you to educate yourself as to what's going on in your county, whether your county has a criminal justice coordinating committee of any sort, and especially one where the community can be active in. A lot of times they'll create these different committees in county government, but they would not let someone just from the community come in, and that's a barrier that we need to change. That is a problem that you see throughout government, the lack of transparency and the lack of getting our voices heard. So I know NAMI is expert at teaching advocacy, so we need your voice in county government, no matter where it is you live in the state. And next slide, please. One of the things that we do is take calls day to day for people that are looking for help with their loved ones who become incarcerated, or for individuals themselves who have unfortunately gotten criminal charges. We will explain court processes, which the competency restoration processes. A lot of what we do is education. Unfortunately, a lot of times we're educating people to the bad news, that the reality is that once there is a criminal charge, everything pretty much changes. in your life, and people that have gone through it has suffered greatly. So that is why the work that law enforcement does is so important. Those that they're able to not, they're able to divert straight to crisis centers or hospitals without a criminal charge. But unfortunately, law enforcement is not the be-all and end-all in the justice system. There are our community public safety folks that will make split second decisions to what to do to keep both the person in crisis safe and those that are there in the surrounding area. So we love and appreciate what law enforcement has done, but when we get beyond that point and we get into the court, that is when we think that there needs to be some recognition of whether the person that's committed a crime has done that crime with criminal intent, or whether what occurred is really due to their illness. If it is due to their illness, then sending them to jail or prison is not going to create a better outcome in the future. And more than likely, the person will come back to our community oftentimes in worse shape than they were when they went in. Other education we do is to improve collaboration between the mental health and criminal justice partners. So behavioral health folks with court folks, with people at the Department of Corrections, with people in the county jails. We're able to advocate and have established the ability to communicate with behavioral health staff and medical staff through most of our county jails. And not so much that we communicate with them, but we help family members who have a loved one who is in jail or prison learn how to advocate for their loved one while they're incarcerated. It's just a frightening situation, and it's not easy to navigate how to, just for instance, to get a release of information signed so that you can talk to medical staff. Counties like Maricopa County, if someone is in the public mental health system, they'll have a database they can see as people come into the county jail. Other counties, many other counties don't have anything like that. So it's important that the general public and that has a loved one or a family member behind bars in any of the jails or prisons has the ability to both give and receive information about their loved one, where they're being housed, and the types of medical treatment. So we teach people how to do that and help them understand what their rights are, and try to alleviate some of the fear that folks have so that they can stand side by side with their loved one while they're behind bars. And go ahead to next slide. So our goal to make jail the last resort for people with severe mental illnesses and co-occurring substance use disorders. That kind of speaks for itself. So let's go to the next one. How are we going to do this, lowering the numbers of people that are locked up? How can we do it? Here listed are some of the tools that we use, some of the advocacy avenues that we use. I know Jim down at NAMI Arizona has provided, has been a great voice for people with mental illness in our justice system, and has shown great leadership in the state. And really, I learned a lot of this from following him in this work. But let me just mention, advocating in the prisons and jails and for people that have that are justice involved, there's not a lot of other folks that are there to help. It's I mean, unless you have someone involved in the justice system, or unless you're a directly involved through your vocation, it's not a popular thing to do to help people that have criminal charges. So it's not like you're helping children, or you get what I'm saying. So it's kind of as though we have a double stigma. We have, we're how folks are blamed for having the illness themselves, and then certainly blamed for having criminal charges. So it's a tough area, and every little stride we make, we appreciate. Never think that what you're doing is too small or doesn't matter. If you are able to help even one person as they travel that road, it's a benefit, and will strengthen and clear the path for others that'll come behind you. So promoting partnerships among the stakeholders is really what has made the movement happen. We, as I said earlier, law enforcement across the state, our sheriff's office, our county sheriff's offices, they have really taken a leadership role in trying to make a difference to turn the tide, so that our numbers could, that our folks could get treatment. We are not seeing the numbers of people with serious mental illness in our state prisons come down. We are still hearing from the Department of Corrections that percentage-wise, the numbers of people behind their bars in the state prisons are just as high as ever, actually have still been going up as of the end of last year. So frustrating, yes. That I attribute to our criminal codes and the fact that mental illness is not allowed in criminal defense other than cases of insanity. So it's a complicated subject that I won't get into here very deeply, but it can be used as a mitigating circumstances. That does not mean it's a defense. So if an attorney tells you or your loved one or family member or friend that when they're charged with a crime, that it doesn't matter that the person had a serious mental illness, was psychotic or delusional at the time of the crime, they're telling you the truth. In our court system, it really doesn't matter. So when you and it took me probably 5 years to really grasp the impact of that. I just couldn't believe it was true. I thought I was missing something, but it is true. So those of you that really want to do criminal justice advocacy, we can talk more about that later. But it's very complex. So go ahead and go to the next slide. This just talks about our numbers. I got to get through, so I better hurry up here. These are the numbers in our prisons as of the end of 2019. And the numbers it talks about releases to the community each month. The numbers released from our jails are more than 10 times that. So huge numbers of people being affected every month and every year. Go ahead, next slide. This is showing our over 70% of the folks in prison, specifically prison, but jail as well, have the co-occurring disorders and lack of job skills, and very hard for them to get help while they're incarcerated. And go ahead and go to next slide, please. Here we go, collaboration, working together to achieve a common goal, and we are not going to be able to achieve anything without our partners working with us, and especially true in this area. Next. Here's a quote from Babe Ruth: "You could have the best bunch of individual players in the world, but if they don't play like a team, they won't be worth a dime. And true again, especially in criminal justice work, we've got to find partnerships and build alliances. Go ahead and go to the next one. Issues here that we will help provide linkages to. We're not treatment providers, we're not housing providers, we don't provide transportation, but some of these most important issues here, and for people to get entitlements of Social Security disability, we will provide guidance on how and try to support them through the processes to obtain their, to see that their needs are met. And this is for people that are involved in the justice system, either on their way in or on their way out. Go ahead to the next slide. I wanted to talk about sequential intercept model a little bit, and some of you may be very familiar and some not, but this was the original sequential intercept model, and I encourage you to learn about it if you have not been familiar yet as of this time. This is over 20 years old, the model, and created to help our communities understand and address gaps, understand the best ways and approaches to keep people out of the system or to intercept them out when they are involved. So I encourage you to study sequential intercept. We have that first law enforcement engagement. And go ahead and go to the next slide. I'm going to show you the more updated version. Kate Lawson from down, that many of you know from down in Tucson, she's now their criminal justice coordinator for the county from down in Pima County, but she actually is the inventor and creator of Intercept Zero, which is an important part of the scheme of things, but community services and crisis services and the crisis care continuum, a very critical part of keeping people out of being justice involved. So we now have Intercept Zero, which is the newest and has been added in. So I want you to, if you're not familiar, I encourage you to, this flyer is available, the brochure is available online, and I encourage you to get it. If you need it, contact me and I can send it to you as well. And you can find it on our website, but it helps you understand a very basic but very, a very systemic overall big view picture of what needs to be done. And what's so beautiful about it is how simple it is. And so I do encourage you to become familiar with sequential intercept, and it is what we are using in stepping up work to achieve our goal of reducing incarceration. Go ahead and go to the next one. So here's our cross-system collaboration, and we'll be encouraging all these groups and others to become involved in the sequential intercept in those areas where they can make a difference. And we're seeing differences. You're seeing folks work in the courts. Sometimes I get upset with the courts because I feel like some of the improvements they do just make it a little more comfortable for you as you're on your way to prison. But so that's why we need our legislators to do some things with our laws so that people can get the help they need. But front end is really where the action is, and with our mental health providers, our health plans, and our crisis services, which is really where we need the most emphasis, because that's where we can prevent it all before it starts. Go ahead, next slide. And you're all familiar with crisis intervention teams. I know NAMI in our own voice, and Terry, and I know folks that are out across the state doing in our own voice with the law enforcement training. There are counties that are still far behind in being able to train their officers, I would just say we couldn't be in a better situation as for law enforcement in our state. Really, our state is one of the leaders in making progress in this area. So if you want to be proud about Arizona for something and for NAMI's impact, right here's your area. I'd say our police collaborations, our sheriff's department's collaborations, and folks and collaborations in the jails and prisons are outstanding. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Now, the Stepping Up initiative is really what this presentation was to focus on. And that's really what you've been hearing. Because what we were doing was the Stepping Up initiative before we knew that the official national initiative was ever going to be created. And a lot of folks, many folks, thousands all over the country were doing this work before the creation of the National Stepping Up initiative. But when the National Stepping Up initiative was created, it gave us a handle. It gave us something to hold on to. It gave us some authority and some clout. And you can see major partners include the Council of State Governments, the National Association of Counties, the American Psychiatric Foundation, and the National Sheriff's Association. And there you go, with support from the National Alliance on Mental Illness and others. So the Stepping Up initiative has been approved and agreed upon by county leaders in all of Arizona's counties, and that took place a couple years back. And Arizona was actually the first state in the United States to have all of our counties signed on, so we're thrilled about that. Still a lot of work to do, but let's go to the next slide and we'll get into that a little bit more. So Stepping Up initiative was launched in 2015. If you don't know who Judge Stephen Leifman is, I encourage you to Google him. You can find a lot of information about him on our website. He's the creator of the initiative and has, through the Stepping Up initiative, he has laid the blueprint for change, which has been followed in states all throughout the United States. So over 500 counties in the US have now signed a county resolution that they have too many people with mental illness in jail and that they are going to change that. And you can get on NACO's website. If you need help with that, I could help you, but you can actually click on a map at the National Association of Counties, and you can read every county resolution for every county that signed an initiative in the United States, including all of Arizona. So I was so happy when they finally got that up. But the County Board of Supervisors signed the resolution. So, and it's hard for the public to find out about this and to know when it was happening. I mean, there was a lot of push from the public for some of them to come around and signed on. Others were, right up there signing immediately. I mean, as soon as the thing started, Pima County, very progressive in this area, and I think they were one of the first. But so I encourage you to learn about the initiative and take a look at the strategy lab that they've created now, which gives the stakeholders tools they need to achieve so many different goals, including the creation of treatment courts, crisis response, and just 100 other things. And you can see examples of what's being done all across the nation in this collaborative work. So be sure to take a look at the strategy lab and sign yourself into the stepuptogether.org when you can, if you haven't been there yet. And continue to check back in and so you don't miss anything. Go ahead to the next slide. So we're at 7:15. I'm probably better get hurried up here. This is the crux of Stepping Up are these 6 steps. So I love the first one, especially if you take a look at this: convene or draw on a diverse team of leaders and stakeholders. There you go. So that's what needs to happen in a county in order to start this work. And those resolutions were signed, and then they make a plan to collect and review data on the prevalence of people with mental illness in jails, assess their treatment needs, examine treatment and service capacity, identify policy and resource barriers, develop a plan with measurable outcomes, implement research-based approaches, and create a process to track and report on progress. So you can see the timeline here of when Stepping Up first was started. And but these 6 critical steps are what's still taking place throughout the nation, throughout all of our Arizona counties, and includes at the beginning when we're talking about collecting and reviewed data and assessing treatment needs, includes what's called sequential intercept mapping. And our courts here have, our Arizona Supreme Court actually put out a call to all of our presiding judges in every county to do that mapping. So that is a really big deal, and it's another thing to be proud of, that our Arizona Supreme Court leadership thought it was important enough to ask, and when they ask, it's not just like, you know, you should do this, it's an ask, asking each presiding judge in each of our Arizona counties to map out their county to find out why so many people with mental illness are going to jail, and what can, basically they're asking what can be done to stop it. What services do we need in place? What crisis services are lacking? What treatment services are lacking? Peer support, whatever it is. So, and peer support has been huge in this. They've been involved. They wouldn't let me in to some of the meetings, but they've had many of our peer support specialists in some of the county meetings, and I was just thrilled. I know down in Santa Cruz County, especially, they've got a good coalition going on there, as small as that county is. So that's good progress. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. So here you see, these really are the 6 steps again. But the commitment of leadership, just look at that and take it in, breathe it in, because that's what we need. And that's what you as a NAMI advocate can do. You can stir up those committed leaders to take a stand. And, you know, basically, like Judge Leifman always says, this isn't rocket science. We know what to do to fix this problem. Common sense solutions. And, you know, making our systems accountable for how we treat people with an illness that's no different from diabetes or heart disease. So be bold, and some of these other parts of the 6 steps are more technical and are more involved with jail staff and crisis planners and behavioral health folks. But you as community members who care about the outcomes of people with mental illness that are just as involved are the ones that really have the power to make it happen. So I just, I commend you for all you've done through NAMI and in NAMI over the years, and will continue to do in this area, and just encourage you, because we need your energy, we need your strength. And go ahead to the next slide. Again, just showing some of the different stakeholders, how important everyone is in this continuum. Our faith-based community, very important. Our county attorneys, hugely powerful in this whole process. I mean, when you think of a legislator and you think they have power, not as much as the county attorney's office. Not when it comes to these types of issues of someone who has been charged with breaking a criminal code due to their illness. All power comes from the county attorney's office, underneath the good Lord, I should say. So they are where the action is in this area. The judge, not so much. Judges are there to make sure that the law is enforced, that the law is carried out. But it's the county attorney that puts those charges together and that makes them stick. So understand your workings in your community and your justice system. Get to know it. Now go ahead to the next slide. And here is just a map of the stepping up counties. This is from a couple years back. I couldn't find the most current one, but it still doesn't, I mean, well, I won't say it doesn't look different, it does, but this was when Arizona had first become the only state that had all of our counties on. So feast your eyes on that. Isn't that wonderful to see? And there is a more current map, but I couldn't get it in a form to get it on the PowerPoint. So, okay, go ahead and go to next slide. So I'm not going to get into this now because I know, but we'll make this PowerPoint available to people. I'm not going to get in any more detail because I know there might be some questions, but we're just talking about pretty much things here that we've already talked about. Go ahead and go to next slide. And this is talking about our coalition. So the Arizona Mental Health Criminal Justice Coalition was actually started by Dr. Dawn Nago out of the Maricopa County Jail, but she wanted it, and with adult probation and the REBA at the time, Shelley Curran, that many of you know, the criminal justice coordinator, back in 2010. But they wanted it to be a statewide effort and did not want it to remain in the county, and they asked us to take the leadership in 2012, and we haven't missed a whole lot of meetings since then. So we ended up canceling last month's meeting, and but we don't do that very often. So we don't have a lot of financial resources to do this work, but we have a lot of heart, and we have a lot of love for people with mental illness that are suffering. And no greater way, I don't think, for someone to suffer who's ill than to be locked behind bars and to lose their freedom. So it's always going to happen. There's never going to be a time, I don't think, when people with mental illness don't lose their freedom and don't become incarcerated. But we want to make that absolutely the last resort, so that it just doesn't happen to very many folks. And we invite you to participate in our monthly coalition meetings. We're meeting down at the Flynn Foundation and on Central. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. Of course, we're online now, and we meet the second Wednesday of each month at 10 o'clock. And we'll be, if you'd like to get on our email list, I'd appreciate if you could fill out the survey for tonight. It would really help me out. And on that survey, just a few questions. There's a place where you can give me your email address if you'd like to be added to our email address. I'd love to add you on so you can receive our notices. This just talks about our who our coalition participants are. Law enforcement is at our in-person meetings. We have a lot of we have many law enforcement officers come, and we just can't tell you how grateful we are for that. And we'll get to the next thing, which is a formal coalition endorser. Go ahead and go to the next slide. We have the opportunity for organizations to become coalition endorsers. And we invite any of you that are in an organization that would be interested in signing on as an endorser. All it means is that you support our mission, and you're willing to make that public statement. And if you, the form is actually available on the homepage of our website. All we need is a signed form from the representative or director of your organization, and we will list you on our endorser page. And it means a lot. You will see, and to my surprise, when we were first reaching out for endorsers, we had quite a few, we even had, sheriff's offices, police departments sign on. I was not even expecting that. So people are not ashamed to take a stand, to do the right thing, to keep people with mental illness from being locked up due to their illness. And even the toughest prosecutor will tell you, if this person committed this crime really due to their illness, they shouldn't be locked up. So that's what we're trying to achieve, so that there's alternative places for people to go, alternative methods to keep those people safe. And not to draw the attention of law enforcement or of anyone else, and to just live a life of recovery and fulfillment like we all have the desire to do. And go ahead and go to our next slide. We're almost done here. This is just a list of some of our endorsers. And you can go ahead and you see that even Chino Valley Police Department, how cool is that? So little Chino Valley. And then the Glendale Police Department. I mean, so how isn't that inspiring when you just see that? And go ahead and go to the next slide. And there's just some other, their Yavapai County Sheriff's Office, they do tremendous work in this collaborative effort of their own. They're in Yavapai County, and they were our first law enforcement organization that signed on. And you can go ahead and go to the next slide. We are so close to being done here. This is just sad. We had to cancel our summit this year because of the virus. So look for a 2-day summit. It's probably going to be the end of May before it's held. It'll be a 2-day mental health criminal justice summit, and we're hoping to have Judge Leifman here. We haven't been able to book the date yet because it's so far out right now. But he should be back here with his whole team, and he's just tremendous. So we encourage you to come. And also, if you have someone you want to nominate, especially a law enforcement officer for outstanding response, please do that. And the forms are available on our website. We honor and recognize those officers every year. And next slide should be close to the last. Oh, just some pictures here finally. Sorry, so much writing. Those are the awards that we give to awards to officers and also judicial officers, so attorneys, prosecutors, judges, and also community members. And your very own Terry McDermott received one of those for his work, and other folks have as well. So it's really what keeps us going. It's one of the most rewarding things we do, is awarding the valuable service of people across the state that are working for the same goal to decriminalize mental illness. And maybe another slide. I think we have maybe 2 more. Oh, I think, yeah, okay, there's just some pictures. There's Judge Leifman down in the bottom right. So he's sort of a hero of mine. And go ahead down to another slide. There's my son, David. So many of you know David, but he's the inspiration behind David's Hope. And he loves you all, sends greetings as he always does. And it's, you know, we named the organization because of David, but also because we said felt like we were David fighting Goliath, where we were just a tiny minuscule person underneath a giant's feet. But together we become large and strong. So I thank you all for your willingness to partner with us. And I don't know if there's another one. I think maybe just my contact information on the last slide. There we go. So there's the contact information, our website, and our address there. So thanks so much. And I'm sorry if I went too long, but if there's questions, I'd love to hear if there are any questions.
Hey, Mary Lou, I actually had a question. This was a caller that came into the NAMI Valley of the Sun office. When a loved one gets arrested, how do you find out where they are? Is there a general database to call, or do they have to call each individual jurisdiction? Well,
you're talking about where they're at in the jail you're talking about?
Right.
So in Maricopa County?
Well, yeah, I guess you would assume it's in Maricopa. I didn't ask that question, but.
Yeah, you know, it's really hard, but yeah, the jail, you can, we can guide people to that if you want to have folks call us, but the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office has a really good website, and you do have to have the person's booking number or their birthday. So you have to have some information on them, but you can pull up information on them online.
Okay.
I can't think offhand that it shows the jail they're in, you know, and the actual jails are, the actual housing is changed frequently. And when people first go in, you know, they're in a processing room for a while. So, but you can, there is a form there where you can even request information or give information to medical. So on the website, I would just encourage people to go to the website and have them, and there is a number, it's kind of a horrible number, and those of you that have used it know what I mean, because sometimes you wait for so long where you can't actually talk to someone. So, but the use of the website is better, but that's if you have some information about them.
Great. And so after you find out where they're at, you had mentioned there's a form that you get for consent to speak on their behalf, to give and get information on them?
Well, you can give, there's a medical liaison form for every county is different, okay? But in Maricopa County, there is a, and it used to be a little different. The way they have it now, it's, you go right onto a web page and you can send them anything you want right from day one, and it's very easy. So if you want to say, you don't want to include anything about their criminal case, of course,
right.
But this is going to be going to medical staff. So medical, which of course includes behavioral health. So you can include anything that you want them to know. For instance, the person has a diagnosis of a serious, you don't have to be that specific, but of a serious mental illness. And for instance, where they get their care, who their doctor is, what clinic they go to. But Maricopa County does have a database that should be, if someone's already in the system, we'll pull that up automatically. But oftentimes there are people that were not previously in the system that become incarcerated, and it's not until their jail contact that they really, they end up getting a diagnosis oftentimes in jail. So, but you can send that information. Now, they're not going to necessarily respond to you. Sometimes they do, very rare though. But you just fill out the form online, submit it, and there's a way that you can keep the copy of it so you have proof of what you sent. So for instance, if you want to say that someone's diabetic, and you can put that right on that form, submit it right to the jail. But every county is different. But I encourage you to go on to the sheriff's office in most counties. You will find the information you need on the sheriff's office website. They're the ones that are, running the jails.
Thank you so much. It was great.
Sure.
Does anybody else have any other questions for Mary Lou? Okay, well, that was great. Thank you so much, Mary Lou. I learned a lot, and I'm sure we all learned a lot. And it's definitely a cause that is really close to everybody's heart. It seems like every, mentally ill person has some sort of interaction with the criminal justice system. So it's really important to hear all this information. And thank you so much.
I appreciate so much the opportunity.
Thank you.
And Marissa, do you have a slide for next week's Thoughtful Thursday? All right.
So this is our slide for next week. If you want to join us, they'll be doing chair yoga. So it'll be a fun activity to do. You'll sign up with that link right there, bit.ly/528 T, and this presentation will be available on YouTube in case you want to review it later. Thank you so much, Mary Lou, for all your knowledge, and we hope to see you on next Thoughtful Thursday.
Thank you.
Hey, Marissa, I'm not sure where I recorded it. It's either to the cloud or to my computer again. So I'll have to find it and then I can send it again. Were you able to see last night's recording?
I haven't looked, but you did record it to the cloud because it has like a little cloud that has the red button.
Okay, I see it.
And I have mine recorded